Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Something Dark. Thank you for joining me again this evening. I'm just going to give a little shout out and a thank you to everybody on Instagram who gave me requests for different cases. I just put a little story up asking if anyone had any cases that they'd like me to cover, and I got a lot of feedback, so I'm going to be working my way through the requests as well as some cases that I already had down that I wanted to cover. So tonight's case is another listener request. I know that the missing persons cases and the unsolved cases can be a bit frustrating, obviously because we don't know what's happened and lots of different theories and stuff. But I really believe that publicizing these cases more, getting the word out there about what happened, especially for the missing persons cases, is crucial. For a family that's lost a loved one, a cold case, or having their loved one's disappearance turn into a cold case is unimaginable and frustrating for the families. So I hope by sharing these unsolved cases, we can shed some light and these cases won't be forgotten. Anyways, that brings us to tonight's case. On the evening of February 9th, 2004, a minor car accident turned into a decades-long mystery that has baffled police, captivated the internet, and left a family heartbroken. Tonight we're going to be discussing the case of Maura Murray, who seemingly disappeared into thin air. To learn more about Maura and the events leading up to her disappearance, we're going to go back in time. Maura Murray was born on May 4th, 1982 in Hanson, Massachusetts, the fourth child of Fred and Laurie Murray. She had an older brother, Fred, two sisters, Kathleen and Julie, and a younger brother, Kurt. Maura was raised in an Irish Catholic household, and when she was 6 years old, her parents divorced, after which Maura lived primarily with her mother. In high school, Maura was a track star, but she was also smart and academically talented, and after school she went on to study chemical engineering at the U.S. Military Academy in West Point. She later transferred to the University of Massachusetts, where she switched her major to nursing. Maura's life was not trouble-free, however. She had gotten herself into a bit of trouble in 2003 when she was arrested in Amherst for improperly using a credit card. She had used the credit card, which was stolen, at various restaurants and stores in town. When confronted with her crime, Maura admitted to getting the number from the bottom of a receipt and copying it down on a note card. The charge was soon dismissed due to Maura's good behaviour. Moving to look at the days leading up to her disappearance. On the evening of February 5th, Maura spoke on the phone with her older sister, Kathleen, while she was on duty at her campus security job. They discussed Kathleen's relationship problems with her fiancé. Around 10:30 p.m., while still on her shift, Maura reportedly broke down in tears. When her supervisor arrived at her desk, Maura was just completely zoned out, no reaction at all, she was unresponsive. The supervisor escorted Maura back to her dorm around 1:20 a.m. When asked what was wrong, Maura said 2 words: my sister. The contents of this call remained unknown until October 2017, when Kathleen publicly explained the conversation. Kathleen, a recovering alcoholic, had been discharged from a rehab clinic that evening, and, on the way home, her fiancé took her to a liquor store, which caused an emotional breakdown. 2 days later, on Saturday, February 7th, Maura's father, Fred, arrived in Amherst. He told investigators he and Maura went car shopping that afternoon, and later went to dinner with a friend of his daughter. Maura dropped off her father at his motel room and, borrowing his Toyota Corolla, returned to campus to attend a dorm party. She arrived at the dorm at 10:30 p.m. Later that night, at 2:30 a.m. on Sunday, February 8th, she left the party. At 3:30 a.m., en route to her father's motel, the car struck a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley, causing nearly $10,000 worth of damage to her father's car. The responding officer wrote an incident report, but there is no documentation of field sobriety tests being conducted. Maura was driven to her father's motel and stayed in his room for the rest of the morning. At 4:49 a.m., there was a phone call placed to her boyfriend from Fred's phone. The participants and contents of the call are unknown. Later Sunday morning, Maura's dad learned the damage to his vehicle would be covered by his insurance. He rented a car, dropped Maura off at university, and departed for Connecticut. At 11:30 that night, he called Maura to remind her to obtain incident reports from the Registry of Motor Vehicles. They agreed to talk again on Monday night, to discuss the forms, and to fill out the insurance claim over the phone. After midnight on Monday, February 9th, Maura used her personal computer to search MapQuest for directions to the Berkshires and Burlington in Vermont. The first reported contact Maura had with anyone on February 9th was at 1 p.m. She emailed her boyfriend, "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly, I didn't feel like talking too much of anyone. I promised to call you today though. Love you, Maura." She also made a phone call inquiring about renting a condo at the same Bartlett, New Hampshire condo association which her family had vacationed in the past. Phone records indicate the call lasted 3 minutes, and the owner did not rent the condo to Maura. At 1:13 p.m., Maura called a fellow nursing student for unknown reasons. At 1:24 p.m., Maura emailed a work supervisor of the nursing school faculty that she would be out of town for a week due to a death in her family. But this was a lie. No one in her family had died. She also said she would contact them when she returned. At 2:05 p.m., Maura called a number which provides recorded information about booking hotels in Stowe, Vermont. The call lasted approximately 5 minutes, and at 2:18 p.m., she phoned her boyfriend and left a voice message, promising him they would talk later. This call ended after 1 minute. In her car, Maura packed clothing, toiletries, college textbooks, and birth control pills. When her room was searched later, campus police discovered most of her belongings packed in boxes and the art removed from the walls. It is not clear whether Maura packed that day, but police at the time asserted that she had packed between Sunday night and Monday morning. On top of the boxes was a printed email to Maura's boyfriend, indicating trouble in their relationship. Around 3:30 p.m. she drove off the campus in her black 1966 Saturn sedan. Classes at the university had been cancelled that day due to a snowstorm. At 3:40 p.m., Maura withdrew $280 from an ATM. CCTV footage showed that she was alone. At a nearby liquor store, Maura purchased about $40 worth of alcoholic beverages, including Baileys, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of Franzia wine. Security footage again showed that she was alone when she made that purchase. At some point in the day, she also picked up an accident report form from the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles. Maura then left Amherst between 4 and 5 p.m., presumably via Interstate 91 North. She called to check her voicemail at 4:37 p.m., which is the last recorded use of her phone. To date, there is no indication that she had informed anyone of her destination, or any evidence that she had even chosen a destination. Sometime after 7 p.m., a Woodsville, New Hampshire resident heard a loud thump outside of her house. Through her window, she could see a car up against a snowbank. The car was pointed west on the eastbound side of the road. She phoned the Grafton County Sheriff's Department at 7:27 to report the accident. According to the 911 log, the woman claimed to have seen a man smoking a cigarette inside the car. However, she later stated that she had not seen a man, nor a person smoking a cigarette, but rather what appeared to be a red light glowing from inside the car, possibly from a mobile phone. At about the same time, another neighbour saw the car as well as someone walking around the vehicle. She witnessed a third neighbour pull up alongside the vehicle. That neighbour, a school bus driver returning home, noticed the young woman was not bleeding or visibly injured, but cold and shivering. He offered to phone for help, but she asked him to not call the police. She assured him she'd already called AAA, but AAA had no record of any such call. Knowing there was no phone reception in the area, the bus driver continued home and called the police. His call was received by the sheriff's department at 7:43 p.m. He was unable to see Maura's car while he made the call, but did notice several cars pass on the road before police arrived. Another local resident driving home from work claimed she passed by the scene around 7:37 p.m. and saw a police SUV parked face to face with Maura's car. She pulled over briefly, but did not see anyone inside or outside the cars, and decided to continue home. This witness's claim contradicts the official police log, which has Haverhill police arriving 9 minutes later. According to the Haverhill, New Hampshire police, at 7:27 that night, Maura's car slammed into a tree. Police were on the scene by 7:46 p.m. The responding officer wrote that evidence at the scene indicated that the vehicle had been eastbound and had gone off the road, struck some trees, spun out, and come to rest facing the wrong way in the eastbound lane. No one was inside or around the car. Damage was visible to the driver's side, front end, passenger side, rear driver's side, and rear passenger side of the vehicle. The windshield had also been cracked. The vehicle was locked and Maura was nowhere in sight. Law enforcement immediately suspected that alcohol had been a contributing factor in the crash. A box of Franzia wine was visible in the passenger seat, and there was red liquid on the driver's side door and on the ceiling of the car. The car was eventually towed away, but not before the responding officer recovered a Coke bottle that contained a red liquid with a strong alcoholic odor. In addition, he found a AAA card issued to Maura, blank accident report forms, gloves, compact discs, makeup, diamond jewellery, driving instructions to Burlington, Vermont, Maura's favourite stuffed animal, and Not Without a Peril, a book about mountain climbing in the White Mountains. Missing were Maura's debit card, credit cards, and cell phone, none of which had been located or used since her disappearance. The police later reported that some of the bottles of purchased liquor were also missing. Journalist Joe McGee, writing for the Quincy, Massachusetts Patriot Ledger, summarized the incident. At a hairpin turn, she went off the road. Her car hit a tree. At that point, a person came along who was driving a bus. It was a neighbor. He asked her if she needed help. She refused, and about 10 minutes later, police showed up to the scene, and Maura was gone. Now moving to look at the reported sightings of Maura. Between 8 to 8:30 p.m., a contractor returned home from Franconia and saw a young woman moving quickly on foot eastbound on Route 112, about 4 to 5 miles east of where Maura's vehicle was discovered. He noted that the young woman was wearing jeans, a dark coat, and a light-coloured hood. He did not report it to police immediately due to his own confusion of the dates, only discovering 3 months later, while reviewing his work records, that he had spotted this young person the same night Maura disappeared. The responding officer to the scene and the bus driver drove around the area searching for Maura. Just before 8 p.m., EMS and a fire truck arrived to clear the scene. By 8:49 p.m., the car had been towed to a local garage, and about 9:30 p.m., the responding officer left. A rag, believed to have been part of Maura's emergency roadside kit, was discovered, stuffed into the Saturn's muffler pipe. At 12 p.m. the next day, authorities referred to Maura as simply missing, almost 24 hours after the last confirmed sighting of her. And at 12:36, a be on the lookout report for Maura was issued. She was reported wearing a dark coat, jeans, and a black backpack. A voicemail was left on Fred Murray's home answering machine at 3:20 p.m., stating that her car had been found abandoned. He was working out of state and did not receive this call, but at 5 p.m., Maura's older sister contacted her father to tell him of the situation. He then contacted Haverhill Police Department and was told that if Maura was not reported safe by the following morning, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department would start a search. At 5:17 p.m., Maura was first referred to as missing by the Haverhill Police. The next day, on February 11th, Maura's father arrived before dawn in Haverhill. At 8 a.m., the New Hampshire Fish and Game, the Murrays, and others began to search. A police dog tracked the scent from one of Maura's gloves, 100 yards east from where the vehicle had been discovered, but lost the scent. This suggested to police she'd left the area in another car, and at 5 p.m., Maura's boyfriend and his parents arrived in Haverhill. He was interrogated in private and then joined by his parents for questioning. At 7 p.m., the police said they believed Maura came to the area to either run away or commit suicide, but her family believed this was unlikely. Maura's boyfriend had turned off his phone during the flight to Haverhill, and at some point he had received a voicemail that he believed was the sound of Maura sobbing. The call was traced to a calling card issued by the American Red Cross. The next day, on February 12th, Maura's father and her boyfriend held an evening press conference in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, and the next day the first press coverage was published. At 3:05 p.m., the police reported Maura might be headed to the Kankamagas Highway area, and she was listed as endangered and possibly suicidal. The police report also stated Maura was intoxicated at the crash site, although the bus driver said she did not appear impaired. The Haverhill police chief said that our concern is that she's upset or suicidal. A week after Maura's disappearance, her father and boyfriend were interviewed by CNN's American Morning. Maura's family expanded their search into Vermont, dismayed that authorities there had not been informed of her disappearance. Although missing persons cases are normally handled by local and state police, the FBI joined the investigations 10 days after she disappeared. The FBI interviewed family from Massachusetts, and the Haverhill police chief announced that the search was now nationwide. 10 days after her disappearance, New Hampshire Fish and Game conducted a second ground and air search using a helicopter with a thermal imaging camera, tracking dogs, and cadaver dogs. Maura's older sister discovered a ripped pair of white women's underwear lying in the snow on a secluded trail near French Pond Road on February 26, but DNA tests concluded the underwear did not belong to Maura. At the end of February, the police returned the items found in Maura's car to her family, and on March 2nd, the family checked out of their motel, exhausted from the search. But Maura's father returned nearly every weekend to continue searching. The March 2004 disappearance of Brianna Maitland in Montgomery, Vermont, 66 miles away from Maura's last sighting in Woodsville, drew comparisons from media and law enforcement due to the similarities in disappearances. However, state police have stated that there are no links between the two cases. In a press release, they stated that they believed Maura was headed for an unknown destination and may have accepted a ride in order to continue to that location, adding that they had discovered no evidence that a crime had been committed. They dismissed the possibility of a serial killer being involved. Years passed, and Maura's case remained stagnant. Sporadic searches were still conducted, and police followed up on any new tips that were called in, but nothing brought them any closer to finding Maura. In 2009, Maura's mom, Laurie, lost her battle with cancer, dying on what would have been her daughter's 25th birthday, May 4th. Maura's dad, Fred, continued to make frequent trips to New Hampshire, looking for anything at all that might indicate what happened to Maura. By the time of the 10th anniversary of the disappearance arrived, Fred was beginning to think about his own mortality. At 70 years old, he worried more than ever that he would never learn what happened to Maura before he died. He continued to believe the case would have been solved years earlier if the state police had turned the case over to the FBI. He remained angry at the police for the way the investigation had been handled, but also seemed resigned to the fact that he couldn't change the past. In 2018, he was able to conduct a volunteer-funded search of a property located close to the Haverhill accident site. It was a place he wanted to search for years, but had never had the funds to do so. Rumours had been circulating for many years that a man living in the house very close to the crash site had been involved in Maura's murder, and had been assisted by extended family members who also lived in the area at the time. Supposedly, they had been having a party, and they drugged Maura before killing her. After getting several tips about the property from some locals, Fred believed there might be some truth behind the rumours, and arranged for the places to be searched after the property had changed hands. Volunteer searchers went through the place on December 2018 and filmed everything they did. Neither Fred nor family members attended the search because, if evidence was found, they didn't want to be accused of contaminating anything if there was ever a trial. After a cadaver dog indicated a positive hit for human remains in the basement of the home, the group arranged to have a second dog brought in. The second dog hit on the same spot. GB Geotechnics, an international firm specializing in the use of ground-penetrating radar, was brought in, and they detected an anomaly underground in the spot where the dogs reacted. Fred was convinced that Maura had finally been found. New Hampshire state troopers and FBI agents searched the property in question on April 3, 2019. They removed the concrete in the basement and dug several feet down, but found only what appeared to be the remnants of either pottery or old piping. They brought cadaver dogs in, but they found no evidence of human remains. As with all missing person cases, there are many theories as to what could have happened to Maura, but there seems to be 4 predominant theories. She went to the mountains to commit suicide, she left to start a new life, she died of exposure, or she was abducted. Some people believe that she was picked up by an opportunistic murderer, but that theory is only based on the fact that the search dogs lost her scent in the middle of the road. Some think Maura may have been stunned by the crash, so she ran into the woods to avoid the police, but she became disorientated and got lost and died from the elements. After all, it was her second car accident in 2 days. Others believe she had been contemplating suicide and the car accident only solidified her resolve. Whatever happened to Maura, it seemed that she wanted to get as far away from the crash site as possible and as quickly as possible. There is also a theory that someone met Maura to pick her up and take her to Canada so she could start a new life. This theory comes from the investigative journalist James Renner. He does not believe she met with foul play, and, if correct, his theory would explain how Maura was able to disappear so quickly after the bus driver came across her wrecked car. Then, there is the 112 Dirtbag video on YouTube. On February 8, 2002, a channel named 112 Dirtbag uploaded a hair-raising video of an anonymous man laughing maniacally in a dark room. Maura's dad in the past had said that he believed his daughter was kidnapped by some dirtbags, and Maura went missing along Route 112. The person who posted this video had clearly been keeping up to date on the case and modelled his username after those details. The creep in the video was never identified, but Fred hasn't given up. He said, "This case has to stay alive. That's the only hope I have. I can't help Maura now. The only thing I can do for her is to grab the dirtbag who grabbed her. That's all I can do. I must find her and bring her home." This February 2021, on the 17th anniversary of her disappearance, Maura's family remain hopeful. "I'm hoping something shakes loose this year," said her older sister Julie. "It's kind of crazy to think it's 17 years. I've spent more of my life without Maura than with her," said Curtis. "I truly believe someone has a missing piece to this puzzle, and maybe they don't even know it," Julie said. She says they're still working through every lead that comes their way. "Some samples that we want to get tested, that's sort of on hold now because of COVID," she said. "Because of such a huge following in the true crime community, we've been able to keep it in the forefront and keep a light shining on it," Julie said. The family is now petitioning for a historical landmarker on Route 112 where she disappeared. A group is also suing to get investigators to release 7 photos of Maura's car after the crash. "At this point, I can hardly talk to the cold case unit. Doesn't really seem like they're working on anything. I can't stop working on this. My family can't stop. And this community too is fired up and proactive," said Julie. "A private group will search the woods near the crash scene again in the spring, like they do every year." The New Hampshire Attorney General's office said in a recent statement, "The case involving Maura Murray's disappearance remains an open investigation. They urge anyone with information to contact the New Hampshire State Police." It's been more than 17 years since that cold winter night, when Maura walked away from her car and vanished into the night. The mystery surrounding her disappearance continues to captivate people, but even all the interest her case has sparked hasn't been enough to bring Maura home to her family. There are dozens of theories out there about what could have happened, and with so little evidence found, it's hard to conclusively rule any theory in or out. Maura was 21 years old when she went missing in 2004. She is 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighs 120 pounds with light brown hair and brown eyes. When last seen, she was wearing blue jeans and a dark coloured coat. If you have any information on Maura, contact the New Hampshire State Police or the Haverhill Police Department. And that brings us to the end of tonight's episode. I hope you guys found the case interesting. I know a lot of other podcasts and YouTube channels and a lot of true crime, just kind of media, has covered this. But like I said in the beginning, I think it's really important that we keep sharing this story to shed light on what happened and to keep the case alive. It's quite clear that her family haven't given up, especially her dad. And by podcasts, YouTube channels, or whoever covering this case, you're keeping it alive and not letting her case and not letting Maura Murray be forgotten. When thinking about the case and all the evidence that we have, the theory that seems the most likely to me is that she was disorientated after the car accident. It was really cold out that night, and I feel like maybe she just wandered off. She didn't want the police to catch her. She just took her phone, took her wallet, and maybe tried to walk. It seems that she could have been, or probably was, intoxicated at the time. The splashes of the red alcohol on the ceiling of the car specifically seemed interesting to me, as if she's holding the cup in her hand, and when the car crashed, it kind of splashed upwards. And if that's the case, that she was drunk, crashed the car, got out, got her phone and wallet, and was kind of scared that the police would show up, so she just decided to walk. It's very possible that she got lost out in basically the middle of nowhere and succumbed to the elements. The dogs tracking her scent, that they lost it halfway down the road. I know that in some kind of weather conditions, scents can be lost, so it could be possible that by the time they got the dogs out there to search, the scent had been lost already, but obviously we can't know that for sure. There just really is so many possibilities and so many facets to the case. In some of the articles I was reading, they were talking about how Maura was quite an avid hiker and she would do trails and stuff with her dad. And one of the belongings that she had in the car with her was a climbing guide to the White Mountains. So you would wonder, what was her plan when she was leaving? I mean, she left the letter for her boyfriend on top of her belongings. It seems that she's packed up her college dorm, but she's told people at college to expect her back soon, but someone's died in the family. Could that just be that she's trying to find an excuse to leave and she's actually not coming back in the future, but she just wants people not to worry? But then the voicemails with her boyfriend saying that, I love you, I'll call you later. Just not a lot of things add up. I think you can go in a lot of different directions, and any way you go, you're still going to have questions. So I would really love to hear any of your insights on this case. If you've seen any interesting documentaries, or if you've listened to any podcasts about this case, please let me know. I would love to hear your insight on it. As always, you can always get in touch with me on Instagram. It's just something.dark.podcast. I'll leave it in the show notes. As mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is a listener request. If you have any cases that you would like me to cover, depending on whether you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching the YouTube video, I have been requested to do videos. So if you would prefer the podcast to be in like a video format, let me know. I could do basically just film me when I'm recording the podcast and upload that to YouTube, because currently it's just a still screen. There isn't any video on it. It's basically just the audio. And I know a lot of people, me included, like to watch basically a podcast, but like watch it on YouTube. I love Mile Higher. That's one that I always watch on YouTube, even though it's a podcast that I could listen to like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. So if that's something you're interested in and you're watching this on YouTube, just leave a comment in the comments below and let me know what you think. But that brings us to the end of the episode. I just want to say thank you for listening and thank you for all of your support. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow the podcast. That helps my podcast get recognized. And as well, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and you like the podcast, please leave me 5 stars. That really helps me get recognized as well. So thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next week.